What's up, y'all? Boogie Knight here, and welcome back to Through the Pages, formerly known as Who's Your Creator and What Do They Do? This is an interactive interview podcast where we talk to people of the creative ilk, find out where they've come from, where they are, and where they're heading, as well as other hopes, dreams, and whatever other tangents we can get off on. And tonight I am joined by a very, very special guest. What started as kind of a basic interaction turned into me fanboying like a crazy person and has turned into a friendship. And by friendship, I mean I find him a friend and he tolerates my existence. You might know him for his work on such interactive storytelling such as Lost in Time, Decade, and the Mini Adventures of Dakara, as well as his work with the Extra Life campaign and the character Crusade, the one and only Panicked Monk. Monk, welcome to the cast.
Well, thank you very much, Boogie. It's an honor. I really do appreciate you asking me on.
I mean, long-time viewer, first-time caller. I mean, we met through Lilia, what, about 3 years ago?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Lilia and Lexi Kitty.
Yeah,
Yep.
And you know, I found your, I don't know how to really word it per se, so I just tend to say interactive storytelling because it's not quite machinima, but it's kind of machinima-esque.
There are elements of machinima, but I do not have the skill or the patience to do full-blown machinima. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you're not of
dedication.
the level of, yeah, I mean, it's not like Rooster Teeth or my buddy Ross from Accursed Farms, but that's, I feel like interactive storytelling is probably the best way I can word your content without like going down the avenue of machinima or, you know, fanfic.
Right. Sure. So, yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah. So I start these interviews the same way day in and day out. How did you get your start in content creation?
Well, it actually was inspired by a very good friend that I have known for many years, like 30 plus years now. And he started his channel. Gosh, how long has it been? It's probably been at least 7 years, maybe a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling these stories through a open game world venue or mechanism, whatever you want to label it.
There's a vernacular thrown in somewhere.
There is, and I'm sure I'll think of it at some point. But so he was telling these, and just kind of through watching his stories and just the encouragement that he gave as I was kind of talking with him and considering maybe I should try doing this. It just kind of it started probably about. I don't recall if it started before, maybe just a little bit after my first YouTube series came out, just after we started the Character Crusade podcast, which probably would have been about, 3 years ago, maybe something like that. Yeah. So that's kind of when I got the idea of trying to put something together in a video format to tell a story.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I know from the research that I've done on your channel, your first series started approximately between 3 and 4 years ago. That's if the timeline seems correct.
Yep, sounds about right. I
know. So I know I'm a complete nerd, like going through your timeline. So I do apologize.
Hey, you do what you got to do. I mean, you're one of 5 people visiting my channel, so that's great.
And the other 4 you paid for on Fiverr, and I'm just joking.
I ain't got that kind of money.
I'm a family man. Dang it, Bobby, that's not how you get views.
No, it really isn't.
Yeah. Sorry, this is something one of my friends and I will always make fun of for the people that are talking about how many views they get, but I digress.
I mean, yeah, I guess it really is. It depends on what you want to get out of it. What are you doing it for? Are you actually trying to make a career? Are you trying to earn some income? Then marketing and knowing what your view numbers are can be important.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just doing it because you want viewership and at all costs, then that's going to circle around and bite you in the ass real fast.
Mm-hmm. I mean, but this isn't about chasing the train wreck. This is about you. So that my apologies for that tangential
No,
aside.
no. It's all part and parcel.
Exactly. So that brings me to my next question, sort of. What made you, this is kind of a two-pronged question. The first part of it would be, what made you turn to interactive storytelling? And the second part, the dovetail off the first part, is what made you want to base it in the Elder Scrolls world?
Okay, so I'll start with the second piece, and that is I am using the Elder Scrolls as a backdrop because the game allows me to do so. It's very flexible. It's an open world concept, and it's very loose with a lot of holes and a lot of gaps that allow a person to use their imagination and fill all those in with any kind of story element you want. Elder Scrolls also fits my personal enjoyment of that fantasy fiction genre that I've always loved since I was playing D&D way back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I've always gravitated towards that high fantasy, and I could tell similar stories probably in things like Fallout, which is another Bethesda game, or I don't know how many open world type of games allow the flexibility of those two off the top of my head, but I stuck in Elder Scrolls because it's a genre I really enjoy, and it's an open world concept that allows me to do it.
Yeah.
Insofar as, I'm sorry, what?
No, I was just acknowledging that makes perfect sense.
And the first parts, what was your first part again?
It's how did you what made you turn into the avenue of interactive storytelling?
Creative outlet, really. I mean, that's the large part of it. I'm not, my channel is not monetized. None of my videos are monetized. I'm not doing it for anything other than I enjoy the challenge of trying to create a story. I enjoy the technical challenge of trying to force the game to help me tell that story. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I guess it fits so naturally to the types of gaming that I've done, the RPGs and the tabletops from yesteryear, as both player and game master, that it just was kind of natural to continue that in this medium. That's what I was looking for earlier. That's the word.
There it is. We found it. I thought you were gonna message me at 2:00 in the morning. We're like, it's medium. No.
Medium. I prefer I prefer rare, actually.
Thank you. I appreciate you admitting that you prefer rare. You said, well, I'm gonna have to end this conversation right here and then.
No. I don't know why that popped into my head. No, rare, actually blue if I can get it.
Ooh, now you're speaking my language. That's a good thing. It was funny you talk about how the Elder Scrolls has that air of ambiguity to it to kind of bend things to your will, because I was just thinking about it a little bit while you were talking, and with the exception of that and maybe, dare I say, like the Dark Souls series with its air of ambiguity, it's really hard to kind of find a game that you can kind of mold and make malleable into something that can fit a storyline.
It is. At least to the degree that these series allows you to do that.
Yeah, I mean, even in hindsight, I feel like. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, when so many games that are kind of on rails or have pre-written story arcs, it's difficult to take what is probably a really good game and a lot of fun and create something new with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think the example that we would frequently give on the podcast is the Witcher series. I actually have not played it. I admit that I have not played The Witcher, but great story, great games, great characters, but you're stuck on rails.
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to be Geralt or,
Mm-hmm.
a facsimile thereof. I don't know what the arcs are lately, but so in something like the Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Dark Souls, you mentioned, you can play that protagonist because the game gives you a silent protagonist, and you can fill that dialogue in any manner you wish.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great point. And I often, say this, and it kind of falls on confused ears. It almost is kind of why, to deviate for a moment, why I like H.P. Lovecraft so much, aside from like, his usual drivel of Call of Cthulhu or Shadow over Innsmouth, because in stories like Color Out of Space, it gives you just enough detail for your mind to fill in the gaps. And there's this air of ambiguity and purposeful vagueness. And
Right.
I feel like that's something that gravitates me towards Dark Souls as well as, the Elder Scrolls in general. Mind you, I like Skyrim, don't get me wrong, but I feel like Morrowind was the one that really did it for me.
Well, I think a lot of people would agree with you. I think from a story perspective, as far as the lore goes, Morrowind is really the where the bar was set for the Elder Scrolls. Oblivion, I think there has a cult following as well, but I think you will find many more people that will cite Morrowind as the pinnacle that one needs to shoot for in the Elder Scrolls world.
Yeah.
So, I would agree.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't mean to deviate. I was just thinking about like open world RPGs, and I agree with you. The majority of them, you're stuck on rails in this linear pattern,
Mm-hmm.
and
And as good as they are, yeah,
and I appreciate
it doesn't give you a lot of creativity.
Yeah, so I mean, and even like thinking about other main machinima, like say Red versus Blue, the most famous. I mean, they're still stuck in like the Halo universe, which is as linear as it gets.
Right.
I mean, even like my buddy Ross, Accursed Farms, who did the Freeman's Mind series. I mean, it was following the path of Gordon Freeman, and you really didn't have much of a path of deviation.
Right. Yeah, you're stuck with that character, and your options are pretty limited. Now, the one thing, and you don't really get much more in a tunnel on rails, if you will, that I was actually going to try to do was I wanted to make a role play video series from the game Myst.
Oh, you have my attention, sir.
And I think I can do it. I just I got to get some time to pull it off. But see, the only reason you can do that is because it's a silent protagonist.
Mm-hmm. The stranger.
And yeah, and so you can craft that character in any number of ways. And why is he on this island? How did he get there? Well, the intro credits kind of give you an idea, but you can skip past that and start with the beginning. You're on the island. So why is he there? What's he got to do? That kind of thing. Or she.
Yeah, I mean, having played the entire Myst saga from the very first one in the early 90s to End of Ages and even Uru, kind of the spin-off, there's that air, I agree with you, the air of ambiguity. Now that Myst actually just released their 25th anniversary entire series, I feel like you have the opportunity now to actually have a little more freedom with the silent protagonist, even though it is still predominantly on rails.
It is, and I think with versions such as Real Mist, which gives it somewhat of a quasi 360.
Mm-hmm.
It's not point and click like it used to be. It gives you a little more opportunity to play that up.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be a different experience, but I think it would be a fun challenge.
That would be amazing. I mean, I know, once again, before we move on to the next question, I know for the 25th anniversary, you actually now use WASD to move the character. So WASD as opposed to just spinning the mouse around. So there might be a little more free roam with it, but I could be wrong.
Yep. And that is, I think that's must be using the real, it's called Real Mist, and it gives you that freedom of movement that the original game didn't have.
I mean, needless to say, Rand and Robin Miller, the developers behind the whole Mist series plus Abduction, they've done their work.
Oh yeah,
but
I agree.
Yeah, so that brings me to my next. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just saying I love those series. They would frustrate the hell out of me, but
oh god, yes,
loved it. Loved the atmosphere, loved the music, the visuals for the time were stunning.
They still are, though, to this day.
They are. They really are. They have a certain standard that have aged well.
I will say this: the one puzzle that really pissed me off the most was the power puzzle in Riven. Gwen's breath, did that frustrate the crap out of me?
You and me both, brother. You and me both.
It's the one time I actually turned to the walkthrough because I was losing sleep. I was like, I forget how old I was. I must have been like maybe 11 at that time. I was barely double digits. I think I was probably in 5th grade, so I was probably like 11-ish. But I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, that one. That was it. It was so frustrating because you could get everything right, but you get one marble in the wrong spot, and you just don't know which one.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going back to all these islands, double checking, and you're swearing that you're right. And yeah, then you go to the walkthrough, and you're going, "Well, crap! How did I miss that?"
No, I think I must have been 13 at the time because I was in middle school. Because my friend, who was dating my other friend at the time, like, we would have these in-depth conversations about like the entire physiognomy of the original Rivenese and everything like that. Like, we would just go off on these deep philosophical tangents, and like my friends would be like, "What do you guys talk about, homework?" I'm like, "No, we're talking about Mist." I'm like, "Oh god." Like, we would talk about like the paradigm of oh god, what's his name? Gen versus what's his face? Atris, yeah, like Atris and like Catherine, and like it was like the Adam and Eve with the inverse of Lucifer being portrayed by Gen. Like it was like a Chevy, man. It ran deep.
Well, and that's another thing that draws me to those types of games, whether it's Myst or these open RPGs,
the Zork series.
Yeah, there is a certain quality of lore and background that runs so deep and is so interesting. In the case of the Elder Scrolls, it's got a lot of ambiguity, which makes it, I think, more interesting as it layers. But Myst is it developed to be very much like that with all the books and the lore as you progress through the series. I'm far from a lore master by any stretch on anything, but it doesn't mean I can't appreciate it. I may not know art, but I know what I like.
Well, and that's what matters. And I mean, I think that's what separates you from a lot of the other, like, just content creators as a whole out there, is you don't bandwagon, like, has so many other people. And I've tried to distance myself from this, but it's tough. So many people just jump on a title because it seems to be what the mainstream is, and it's, the effort is almost half-assed because they're just not that into it. Whereas you get somebody like you that's focused on the Elder Scrolls, or some of like your other colleagues that are genuinely passionate about their craft, you feel it, and it's more interesting because you're invested in your emotions as opposed to just like, we're gonna go down here. Oh, okay, we're gonna shoot this person here, eh?
Yeah. Some of these can be pretty tough to watch, but that's just because that's my style. I mean,
I sidebar before we move into the next question. Like I've often compared when people are like, what is Monk? What does he do? And I'm like, well, he's got a cozy voice for catastrophes. Like he's so soft spoken. Like you could be like in the middle of an all out battle with a bunch of Falmer, and you're like, oh, okay, well that happened. I'm like, how? What?
well, I'll take that as a compliment.
The only person that comes close, and just this is just going to wax funny, was many years ago when Lilia's Discord was at its infancy stages, and it was Josh Wasabi, me, and Morges, and we were streaming Borderlands. Josh died, and he started screaming like obnoxiously. Shout out to Josh. My character died, and I swore like a crazy person. Morges died, and then he just goes, it appears I have died. I am sorry. Love you, Morges. I miss you, buddy.
Oh, well.
To this day, it still is an inside joke with me and some of my friends with just to be like, it appears I have died. I'm like, I'm like, that's Panic Monk to a T. Just this quiet, just relaxed person.
That's only because I cut out all the other scenes where I do die.
See, that would be good to have like an ongoing like outtake of like dumpster fires of like the number of times that you have just died like in a completely insipid format.
I have thought about trying to do that, but as I'm editing my various episodes and trying to get them out the door, the last thing at that point in my mind is trying to save and archive off all the the DVD extras, if you will.
It almost sounds like you're talking about that. I almost feel like you're referring to like you're developing the next Leica series.
I did do that a little bit with Lost in Time. I did archive and save out as outtakes when I did have character deaths, and I'd make these like little 5-minute videos of just him being ragdolled. They're in the. I think there's it's its own playlist. It's like Lost in Time outtakes.
Oh gosh.
A Dwemer's Fail, because the name of the series was A Dwemer's Tale.
Yeah, that's clever. I like that pun.
So I didn't do a lot of those, but I did do a few. They were kind of fun.
Oh yeah. I will say this. So final deviation before we move on to the next question is like, since we're talking about Skyrim, you've played Morrowind, haven't you?
I have not to the end, and it's been a long time since I've done that.
Because my only question would be, and this is going to be very polarizing, so this is entirely up to you if you choose to answer, which Dwemer, I guess, structures did you like better? Were they better designed in Skyrim, or they were better designed in Morrowind?
Oh, boy.
Loaded question.
I honestly don't know if I can answer that, because it has been so long. I can't picture a good A/B comparison.
It was just kind of a deviation, like I said, tangential. Because my buddy Harkov and I, we've had in-depth conversations about like which one was portrayed better. So it was just somebody that's more of the expert of the craft, and comparatively speaking to us, like I would just be curious.
Yeah, I'm more knowledgeable of the Skyrim version of the Dwemer, but I have a sneaking suspicion that Morrowind probably had a more complete and more fleshed out version.
I mean, that's a pretty good way to work. I mean, just for me personally, I feel like Morrowind, the Dwemer settlements were more explorable. They were a little more wide open, whereas Skyrim, it felt more narrow and kind of on rails-ish until you got more into the underground.
Yeah. The dungeon crawls in Skyrim, well, any of the dungeon crawls are pretty linear. There's kind of one path when you get into it, and that includes the Dwemer ruins. But yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
And they all magically circle around back to the entrance, so that's convenient.
That is extremely convenient. I tip my hat off to Skyrim for that. Whereas, like, you get, like, in Oblivion, when you get to the end of, oh gosh, what are those dungeons that are scattered around Cyrodiil? I forget what they're called. Like, they're not Daedric. They're not Adra either. You know what I'm talking about. It's when you had to get one of the actual items where the Welkin stones are held.
The alien.
Yeah, the Aelid ruins. It's like those, like, having to go to, like, the ass end of that to get one item, and then you have to remember how you got back. And I'm like, I need a spell of mark and recall because this just sucks.
It's probably more realistic, but from I guess a playable design perspective, it's probably better that they did circle them around in Skyrim. So,
oh yeah, definitely.
Just people are starting to lose their what's the word I'm looking for? Their attention spans are shorter, so you got to help them out a little bit.
Here's a shiny object. Jingle my keys.
No, I should really get back in, and I should play those old ones again.
The Daggerfall. Oh gosh.
Oh Lord, yeah. I don't think I ever played Daggerfall. I do have Morrowind. Actually, I have it on CD and all the expansion discs. I think I even have the creation kit for that one.
I think I do too, actually. Yeah, I still have Morrowind, Tribunal, and Blood Moon all on separate CDs.
Oh yeah. Good times.
Oh gosh, that takes me back. complete with Gainer, like, trying to mug you for money.
It's not quite as bad as the Once Upon a Time when I was back in college and swapping floppy disks to play Wizardry.
Oh gosh. Oh yeah, or like Diablo 1.
Oh yeah, I got. Is it 3? I think I've got 3, 2 or 3. Which one's the newest?
3.
3. Okay, I've got 2. I've got Diablo 2, and I've got a whole pack of discs for that. As you can see, I haven't played it for a while.
Diablo 2, God, that takes me back to freshman year in college. I mean, you want to talk about, like, collectors of old games? Like, my buddy Harkov, like, has the original, like, Hexen and Heretic on floppy. It's insane.
Oh, jeez. You probably can't even play him anymore because you don't have the equipment.
Probably not, but I mean, that's just his vintage thing. I mean, he still has, like, he collects old pins from, like, the Dukakis era, so I mean, good on him. But I digress. We spent 30 minutes on 2 questions, so we better continue. This is gonna be like an all-night cast.
I'm gonna make your editing life hell.
Well, I mean, art imitates life. So, take us through the process of coming up with your stories. I mean, how long does it take for you to come up with a plot? Do you generally do advanced planning, or do you do more of a shoot from the hip? Do you do it mainly solo? Do you do it with a collaboration team? Take us through the whole process.
Yes to everything. So it kind of starts with the seed of an idea. Lost in Time, actually, I got that idea came from when I was starting to listen to, like, techno and industrial style music, EBM stuff.
Hell yeah.
And it just made me think of that group of people, that technologically advanced sort. I'm like,
the Rivet Heads.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to make a Dwemer series and I wanted to bring in some of that techno music as background and filler to accentuate the series. So that's how that one started. It just it started from music. And music is a huge part I think, of any storyteller in this medium. It is for me. It is for my friends, but maybe we're the only ones that care. I don't know. So I guess the idea can come from anywhere. So yeah, it starts out as the seed of an idea, whether that idea is spawned from music or from a suggestion or what. I don't map it out. I try to wrap kind of this broad outline of where to start and where I want it to end, but I've found that it almost always strays from that early on in the series as new ideas develop throughout the process, throughout the different episodes. And so I try to keep this, try to make this outline, but I rarely actually. It's a moving target, so it's constantly changing.
Well, that's good in a lot of aspects. I mean, personally, because it doesn't feel so rigid. So, like, it's, I guess, kind of to really just go off on a tangent, it's kind of like the whole Leroy Jenkins thing. Like, you have this crazy plan and then somebody screws it up. So there's room for flexibility as opposed to trying to keep the plan and completely nerfing it.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I try to keep a certain direction so I'm not too all over the board. That's the the danger of being too loose, is that you can lose continuity really fast. So I got to try to keep that in the back of my mind as well. So I'm not all over the board and the series as a whole still makes sense as a whole, even if different episodes might highlight different aspects. So, I have a seed of an idea and I try to stick to that idea, but I try to also remain flexible enough to allow myself freedom.
I mean, that's necessary, particularly in the world like Elder Scrolls, where it's a very almost chaos theory centric thing. You do one thing that possibly deviates from your original plan, and then you have to rework things.
Right. So, and the other, I guess, the other downside to that is, as I mentioned before, I'm not a heavy lore wonk, so I get things wrong, but it's my story. So if you don't like it, go make your own.
That would be the greatest closing for all your videos.
Kind of how I look. I try to stay true to aspects of lore that are pretty well defined. But if there's a gap, I'm gonna take advantage of it. And really, the mechanics, the lore, the world in and of itself is a way to present something. Ultimately, the story is about the character. So you're following a character through a journey, through their development. So all this other stuff on the sides, it plays a part of developing that character, but if I stray from something that might be known to everyone but me, so be it.
That's really interesting that you bring up playing the game for a character, because it's not often in any form of media where you honestly do it for the character. Because, like, from a gaming perspective, it's like it's for the story, or it's because it's a sequel, or it's the triple sequel twice removed, or the graphics are good, or it's a very attractive man or a woman. It's rarely that it's because of the character. It's kind of like, when you think about it, it's kind of like Mad Men. You watch Mad Men for the characters. You don't watch it for the plot.
Right. So, and that's kind of generally how I construct my videos, is the idea of all these events and which quests I want to try to portray this character through. but they're all there to help develop the character. So as a person watching, hopefully, if I'm doing things somewhat right, you'll get invested in that character.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of it will just help accentuate the character. So it's for me, it's about telling a story, but the story ultimately is about the character.
That's awesome.
That really is a central theme when we were doing the Character Crusade podcast. I mean, it's right in the title. It's all about character.
Mm-hmm. And that's, once again, a rarity that you don't really see too much in, quote unquote, our world, as it were.
No, I would agree, and it's a very niche. It's a very niche place to be, but I like it.
Well, I mean,
as far as
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, yeah. So far, I mean, there's only one direction. It's only up from here because the more things I do, the more things I learn about myself and about my style and my abilities. Mm-hmm. So things only get better. If I always kind of chuckle to myself, with anybody that's watching the Lost in Time series, if you can get past the first 10 to 15 episodes, I think you'll be good because they're so bad.
They're not bad. They're learning. It's more like you're learning your craft as opposed to fully saying it's trash. I mean, it's not like you're posting pictures of Tub Girl or something.
That's exactly what it is. I was part of that particular series too, was me trying to prove that you didn't need a Cray supercomputer to tell these stories. I was running that on a old HP i5 laptop with onboard video graphics, and that was part of the challenge, to prove that you can still do this without having the ultimate setup.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'd still like to have more than one monitor, but it's what I have, so
baby steps. And just one other quick thing before we move on, like you talking about how you're moving, you're ascending, to kind of go back to that. And like I had this mental image of like your journey as an interactive storyteller is almost like the Dovahkiin's ascension of High Hrothgar for the first time. Like that is you trying to find your craft, but it's, instead of actually eventually peaking, it's something you'll never graduate from, which is a good thing, because from my interactions with you, which has been mainly me quietly observing and occasionally liking and leaving comments, you're always developing, and that's something I deeply respect.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I'm glad that comes through, because that's part of it is, I do these for me. Honestly, first and foremost, it's a little selfish, but I do it because I enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I can get better at it, and that comes across, and I would think that it would, hopefully after 3 years of it. But
well, I mean, every one of your videos I've watched, you have yet to make a "Where's the Blacksmith" reference, to which I'm utterly relieved. Sorry, Silverleaf. All right, so now this next question is just more for shenanigans' sake, and this is also going to be kind of baiting more of your hardcore fans. I know, all 5 of us, and I'm just joking. What has been your most enjoyable series to date from a creation standpoint?
So, of my own?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I've only got a couple.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm saying. That's why I'm asking. It's not like you got to go through your archives, but I mean, it's not from the outcome perspective, but like, which one of the 3 have you had the most enjoyment from birth to burial, as it were?
I would probably have to say my first one, Lost in Time. I think there's a nostalgic factor that weighs into that, just because it was my first real effort at producing something. Mm-hmm. and I did learn a lot throughout that series, and I think the character was fairly memorable, and a lot of people really seem to enjoy and become attached to that particular character. So I think that is probably to date my most memorable series. Hopefully, Decade will be like that. I've been a little flustered with it lately, just because we moved, and it's just I kind of lost my momentum with it. So that's slowly coming back, but I think it's probably more noticeable for me internally than it is externally. So no, I think my first series, just for a myriad of reasons, is probably currently my favorite and most memorable.
Gotcha. I mean, just to kind of, I guess, affirm, having watched Decade from like inception till present, I don't see any kind of, I guess, from an observer and an audience standpoint, I haven't really seen anything that might cause you to appear flustered from a developmental standpoint. But I guess as somebody who's currently taking a sabbatical from the Dark Souls series, I can kind of see where you're coming from. But at least from an audience perspective, I don't see any issue whatsoever.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I guess it's more of an internal. I was kind of losing my enthusiasm for it. And when I had to step back and take a break, it just kind of fed into that doldrum, if you will. But now that I'm kind of trying to pick up that trail again, and actually I am really not far from the end of that particular series.
Really?
Where I'm going to be ending it. So there is an end in sight, probably, I don't know, maybe 5 more episodes, something like that.
Oh, wow.
Well, it might peak at around 50. I think I just released 44 as of today, the 19th of August. So, so yeah, probably around 50 will round that particular series out, and I've got some plans beginning to form that I laid some of the foundation for in today's release.
Oh, that's good. I'm looking forward to that.
So I think it should be fun. So it'll be another Skyrim series, but it'll tie in. That's the plan, at least.
Nothing wrong with that. I'm actually going to jump ahead to a question before we go back to another question, so I'm just going to rearrange this because you talked about kind of becoming flustered with Decade. So as opposed to jumping into the question I originally had planned, I want to kind of dovetail then. So what would you say has been the biggest hurdle you've encountered so far, and then also how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I guess the biggest hurdle for me has been, recently with this current series, and just trying to stay in touch with the character and keeping it interesting for myself. I was, like I said, I was kind of losing interest, and it just kind of felt blah. I just was losing. I wasn't interested in it hardly anymore, and I knew I couldn't really just stop, because that wasn't going to help resolve anything. I'm not necessarily a completionist, but I don't want to just fall off the edge of the earth on this particular series either. So I think it was
the root
just
of Duke Nukem Forever.
What's that?
Go the root of Duke Nukem Forever. Incomplete. Complete vaporware gone.
Yeah, there you go. No, it just was. I was losing touch, and I was kind of losing my my feel for the character, and because my stories are about character, if I start to lose that relationship that I've tried to build up, it becomes hard to remain invested. It really was kind of just venting to the population in the Character Crusade Discord and saying, I'm not feeling it. It feels like it's boring, and just getting some, using the people around me as sounding boards, just to vent. I guess that is kind of what helped me realize that, I'm in my own head, and it's not as horrid as it seems like right now. So let's dive back into this. Let's get reinvested, and let's keep going. And that's kind of where this idea of creating another series that ties in with this one came from.
Interesting.
It's really about using the people around you when things are getting, I guess, low or uninteresting. Fall back on the folks around you, and I think you'll find that they've got a lot of good feedback to give, whether it's Couch Warrior, my good friend Stu, or yourself, or any of the various people that have been following me for a while. Just sometimes you can't always be the pillar. Sometimes you need a pillar to lean on.
Okay, that just completely gave me chills for an entirely different reason, but that's you know what I'm inferring from my interactions on Discord.
Yep.
So we're gonna move on to just
okay.
Brush
Sorry.
that off. No. I appreciate it. I'm not saying it in a negative light. I'm just saying because, well, that just struck a chord with me. That's once again, you already know what's going on from Discord and Twitter, but that's beside the point. Moving on to the next question, because this is not about me, this is about you.
No, that's all right.
So how did you exactly meet the rest of the Character Crusade, i.e. Stu and the gang, and then how often do y'all collaborate?
Oh boy. Well, I have known Stuart since we were in Boy Scouts. I've known him for over 30 years. Probably 35 at this point or more.
Oh, I know how old you are, so
we've known each other for a long time, since and really we started getting into the Dungeons and Dragons and role playing in high school together, and I'm kind of a latecomer as far as RPGs go. I could have probably started in 6th grade, but that's not where I was then. But my taste changed, and as I got a little older, my junior year in high school, I started getting into this stuff with Stuart a little more, and I'd known him, like I said, since before then. And then we were roommates in college for a couple years, and I've pretty much known him ever since I can remember. So he actually came up with the idea of doing the podcast, and he's like, is this something you'd like to do? I'm like, sure, let's give it a try. And that's kind of when all of this kind of exploded for me. So as far as Matt, who's the third person in the Crusade, I met him through Stuart. They used to work together. So I've known Matt for several years now, not nearly as long as Stuart, but a fair amount of time. And we don't collaborate a ton now that the podcast has actually been kind of set aside. I won't say we're done podcasting, but the original idea of the podcast was we were going to strike while the iron was hot, We were going to get on and into that, because the Elder Scrolls 6 was going to be released within that year, right?
Right.
So we were going to get right on the front edge of that. And then 3 years later, it still never has been released. And we got to a point where we were just like, we're rehashing material here. It might be time to stick a fork in this. We'll call this piece of it done. We'll take a break, and we might come back with another podcast idea. We've done a few spin-offs in the meantime, but or in parallel.
Mm-hmm.
But the three of us still will get together. We do the Extra Life. We plan on trying to do that again this year.
Excellent.
And Stuart and I talk pretty much every week.
Mm-hmm.
I know he kind of uses me as a sounding board for his ideas, and vice versa. So we use each other to collaborate on ideas for each other's stories when we're kind of in a jam. It's like, I've got this, here's my options, but I'm not sure how to tie them together. And just through talking through it with one another, we usually, by the end of our conversation, are, all right, I've got it all mapped out now. I know how it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more how we collaborate. But every now and again, just recently, actually, I pulled Matt into planes going overhead. I pulled Matt in to do some reading for me because he's got just a marvelous big voice that he's done some voice training for. So using him to do some reading and vocal spots is a great asset to have in my back pocket whenever I need it. So, and he's always happy to do it, provided he's got the time. So, as far as others, I've actually wrangled my wife into doing a little bit of voice work for me on a couple different episodes. So that's been kind of nice.
Nice.
I've had my daughter do a little bit for me in the past. So, I collaborate with others as needed. I'd like to collaborate on some stories with some other people, but it gets difficult just logistically on doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I was more of a curiosity thing, because once again, I've watched you for some of particularly we're on Extra Life, and I just wasn't sure if Character Crusade has gone the way of the dodo, or if it's just kind of like lying in wait, as it were.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's. I would say it's in remission.
It's in a holding pattern.
Yeah, and I never say never, but right now, each of us have enough things going on that there isn't a big need or no huge ideas being spawned at the moment to bring that back as its own entity. There will always be Character Crusade. We've got our Discord, and that's how things will be, I guess, marketed. Stu owns the web URL for that, and so the charactercrusade.com will bring you to a website where he is kind of a bunch of our stuff, but he's reworked it more for his stuff now since the podcast has kind of fallen off. But it may be resurrected, but right now we've got enough going on that I don't think we need to worry about it.
So it's not going to be like the Nerevarine of the podcast world. I'm just joking. Shoehorn that Morrowind reference in here.
No, let's refer to it more as the Dwemer. You just don't know where it went.
Well, the last known Dwemer that lives in Telfir can give you some insight on that.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Sorry, colossal nerd.
I forget his name, but I know which one you're talking about.
Yagron Bargarn or something like that?
Yeah.
But, okay, so next question then. So we've already touched a little bit upon this, but in case there's anything you want to divulge or bait us, are there any other game series that you think you would tap into for a story? Obviously, you talked possibly about tapping into Myst, but I wasn't sure if there were any other games or series you were kind of side-eyeing or you're willing to divulge.
Right now, not really. I'm kind of a one-trick pony, and I'm okay with that.
I mean, I wasn't sure if you're going to be like, I'm going to go into the realm of Dead Space, the most linear of all the horror action games.
It's a good game, though.
It is. No, it really is. The first one, amazing. Second one, I still have yet to play. Third one, I could take your leave.
Okay. Well, honestly, I don't know if I would make a series out of it, but I am keeping a close eye on the Baldur's Gate 3.
That looks good.
It does. Divinity Original Sin was really pretty good. I didn't get into it as much as I could have, but the Baldur's Gate is going to have a very similar mechanic, it sounds like, but using D&D rules. So that's looking really good. I watched their stream. Was it just yesterday or the day before? They had one on, and I think that is going to be slated for early access at the end of September 2020. So
that'll be interesting.
I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, yeah. It's funny you mentioned Divinity Original Sin because years ago I used to play it with Gab, and neither of us could get into it, so we finally just called it quits just because we had hit like a wall.
It happens, yeah. It happens.
We're like, are we done playing this? Yeah, we ought to just go ahead and just pack up and move on to something that's less frustrating when we only have like an hour together.
Right.
I mean, what about Pillars of Eternity? I mean, you talk about kind of Baldur's Gate. I mean, and Pillars of Eternity obviously being developed by the same people.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of forgot about that. There's so much going on.
I know. I mean, I need to get back into Pillars of Eternity. I mean, my buddy Sipidos did the entire series. I'm kind of like, dude, you have the patience of a saint.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look that up and get refamiliarize. I'm not real familiar with it right now, so.
Gotcha.
Like I say, kind of a one-trick pony, but
no, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you enjoy it, keep going.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so 2 more questions for you tonight. This one's just for fun's sake. What other things do you enjoy doing besides your interactive storytelling? I know you're a big beer buff, but I mean, what other stuff do you enjoy doing besides the Family Man?
Oh, trying to think. Honestly, I don't get out much.
I mean, I see pictures or like tags that you post on Twitter of like whatever like beer you're currently drinking. So I don't know if like you're interested in like craft brew or like.
I was for a while. I was kind of getting into the IPA crowd for a little bit, but I've kind of pulled back and just kind of back to basics. I heard a term a while back referring to kind of your macro brews, your Millers and that kind of stuff. The lawn mowing beer.
That's a great phrase.
It is, because you know exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah, it tastes like lawn clippings.
Just back to big. Well, it's not so much as like the IPAs where it's tastes like you're chewing on grass.
Hey! I'm just joking. It's true.
Which I don't mind, but just kind of getting back to basics as far as beer is concerned. Just then give me a straw-colored, easy drinking Pilsner, and I'll be good. At this point, I've kind of been getting into the scotches a little bit, but again, like anything, I haven't dove so far deep that the problem with like the whiskeys for me is my nose is completely shot. My sinuses are always giving me trouble.
Oh, man.
So, you can talk about all these nuances and all these notes and caramels and what have you. I don't get it. It's whiskey.
You just give
No,
me in a plastic bottle. I'll meet you behind the woodshed.
I'm not getting that. I don't smell that. But doesn't mean I don't enjoy it.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, this is another reason why I wanted to interview you is because like outside of your stories, like you're a very private person. So
I try to keep some of my things. I mean, if you noticed much on Twitter, there's sometimes I get a little, I'll expose myself a little. Probably usually at a late night after a few whiskey sours, but
in a lot of cases, you're almost like more to guess. Like there's so little we know about you, and I'm kind of like, we've been. I once again, I say friends, and I consider you a friend. You tolerate me. Like there's not much I know about you outside of the platform. And then you get other people like me, who's an emotional disaster, and Lex, who is like a Jack Russell Terrier. Shout out to Lex and Kitty.
There really isn't. There's really not a lot. It kind of is. I am what you see is what you get. I'm fairly WYSIWYG in that way. I like the role playing stuff. I like Star Wars. I like Star Trek.
But which one do you like more?
Depends on my mood. Equally, I probably have watched more Star Wars. I'm digging The Mandalorian.
Oh yeah.
And I was a huge Pink Floyd fan back in the day.
Yes.
Still enjoy their music, but have migrated to different styles since then, like some of the electronic stuff, like I mentioned earlier.
Like what are we talking? Like Carpenter Brute or Two Lone Swordsmen? KMFDM, Front 242.
KMFDM, I do like KMFDM. Heimat Erde is a small band out of Germany that I've enjoyed over the years.
You got me into quite a few bands, like if it went like Wadruna or Heilung. I mean, those are two bands that I listen to regularly just because of you.
Yeah, I really enjoy those. Again, like Ivor from the Faroe Islands, I think she's got just an amazing voice.
Oh, extremely.
Stuff. Aurora is another one that I enjoy listening to. Back in the day, it was a lot of Skinny Puppy.
Oh, hell yeah.
Or
Right or Wrong or the Right.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good album, actually.
Yeah, it still is to this day. It's definitely withstood the test of time.
Yeah, I would agree. So, I'm kind of all over honestly, the only music that I really don't get into much at all is country.
There you go. Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%.
Once upon a time, I really wasn't much into the rap hip hop scene, but some of it I don't mind. I don't mind some of it, especially the older stuff now that I can listen back onto it. I think I can appreciate it with a little bit different perspective now. So
we're talking like Sugar Hill Gang, B.I.G.
Yeah, probably a little older than that. Like your NWAs and that kind of Run DMC, if you really want to go back.
Dude, I love me some Run DMC, yeah. Two Live Crew, if you want to get nasty.
With Flava Flav and...
Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
I love his not Flavor Flavs, but the main.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know any of their names. Sorry.
I have no idea. I know who you're referring to.
Yeah.
But the name of the band is slipping mind because I was talking to somebody about them the other night. I'm trying to remember who it was, but like we literally broached that as like this band, this group, so on and so forth. But yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Public Enemy.
That was who was I talking to about that? I mean, it must have been. I don't think it was Ray, but it was.
I like their sound. The Tribe Called Quest. I like their
Okay.
sound. Actually, I think they're very similar to Public Enemy in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tribe Called Quest is
As far
good.
as sound goes, but so I mean, I don't go deep into my rap and hip hop by any means, but there's a few things I do. I don't mind.
Fair enough. Okay, and this
So
brings me then to the last question, and this is more, once again, coming a question for somebody I deeply respect and admire in the content creator community. So this is something I value as much as pretty much anybody else who's watching this. And that is, what kind of insight would you want to offer to burgeoning content creators, whether it's in the interactive storytelling department or just as a whole?
I think number one, and I think a lot of creators would say as much, and that is first and foremost, do it for yourself. If you're doing it for other people, if you're trying to impress other people, you're either not going to be successful or you're going to burn out.
Mm-hmm.
So enjoy what you do. Do it for your enjoyment, and that will project and come across. Because if you're enjoying it, others are going to pick up on that. That's probably the biggest piece. But it's easy for me to say that because, like I say, I'm not doing this to supplement myself in any way. So I am doing it just because I enjoy it. If you're doing it or you want to get into trying to build a career or some kind of supplementary income from it, that's going to be a little bit different. And I don't know if I could actually really speak to that very well because that's not my perspective. And I just can't think like that. So
No.
other than that, have a handful, one or two people at least, that you can feel comfortable going to when you're stuck. Don't be afraid to use other people. And
in a proactive fashion. Don't just use them and dump them. I'm just kidding.
no. Yes, I should say, hopefully my term of use is understood, but yeah.
Once again, you're talking to an English minor. It's my job to parse things. So sorry, go ahead. I cut you off.
No, that's fine. No, I was just saying that don't be afraid to get either the opinions or the feedback from close people around you, or get again, you don't have to use their advice, but a lot of times just talking through sticking points, you'll solve it yourself. You just need someone to talk it through with, in large part. So have a couple people that you can trust, that you are comfortable with, that you can rely on. And I think that's just kind of a life thing too.
No, that makes perfect sense, and that's really good insight for people to have, because, I mean, sometimes I feel like people will, myself included, I've been guilty of this numerous times in the past, going rogue and feeling like you can do it on your own, but what it comes down to is if you don't get, and this is something I preach now openly, is like, if you don't get the feedback you need, how are you going to be able to proceed? No, not trying to rhyme or anything, but it's all about the constructive feedback, and I've had conversations with Connor about this, is if it's just like simple first, or hey man, great video, like, follow, I mean, how are you going to be able to continue your journey as a content creator without that? Or if you're in a rut, as you talked about, having people to help build your base back up. So I mean, I think that's fantastic advice.
Yeah, so I guess that's at this point, that's kind of what I could offer is enjoy what you do what you enjoy, and don't be afraid to ask for help, even if it's just rhetorically, so to speak.
Makes sense. Well,
and don't be afraid to make a mistake, because it's going to happen.
I was just about to say that.
You're going to screw something up. You're going to get something wrong. Someone's going to point it out, because there's always that person.
Mm-hmm.
So don't fret. Move on. Learn from it if you need to. Ignore it if you need to.
No, that's, yeah, I mean,
Easier said than done sometimes, but I think for any of the any creator, you're going to run into that negativity at some point.
mm-hmm. I mean, it
You
is
know,
how you
just
deal with it. I mean, depending on what the situation is and what you think the proper response is warranted, because that's always in the eye of the beholder. But that's
right.
more semantics than anything else.
Yeah, and it's easy to say, oh, just you know, don't ignore it and all that stuff, and maybe that's the right thing, maybe not. It really all depends on the context of the scenario, but uh, just know that you're going to run into those folks that are more than happy to point out your shortcomings.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually been really fortunate just because I think I am pretty small. I haven't had a lot of that, but every now and again, I'll run into something that makes me scratch my head and like, what are you talking about? Um, but yeah, even Shirley Curry gets her detractors,
Mm-hmm.
which to me is mind-boggling and
Well, yeah, I mean, the
nearly
thought
as
that
impossible
Shirley
as
has like
impossible can be. But
disseminators.
uh, with more success, that is one of the downsides.
Mm-hmm. It's a double-edged knife, whichever way you
It
slice
is.
it.
Yep. So always keep that point in front of you.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you so much, Monk. I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to be on the podcast. It's been very insightful for me, and hopefully you had a modicum of enjoyment as well.
Oh, absolutely. No, this has been great. I appreciate the invitation, and yeah, anytime, I am at your disposal.
Well, I appreciate that. And for those of y'all that haven't had a chance to check out Panic Monk, I will have links in the description below to his YouTube channel as well as his Twitter page. So when you do have a second, go over there, take a look at some of his videos. They're incredibly good. They're well done. They're well received. And what Monk doesn't know is his videos are part of what my playlist when I go to bed to unwind because they're incredible. His voice is incredibly relaxing. So take a
Well,
look.
that's good to hear.
I mean, if you couldn't tell by the sound of his voice right then and there, but check him out. Links are in the description below. It definitely warrants a view, if not a like and a subscription. He's definitely worth checking out. So,
Well, thank
yeah.
you, good sir.
Well, I appreciate that. So check him out. And of course, before I call tonight, a big thank you to Christoph Ray for being a sponsor of the Boogie Night Project. If you like low poly horror games with an emphasis on character development, story, ambiguity, fear factor, ambience, links in the description below. And of course, links are in the description below as well to my Twitter page, my temporarily defunct Twitch page, my Patreon, and my public Discord channel. I won't go into more information because this is not about me. This is about Panic Monk, so check him out first. And if you do have a hair of time, you can go ahead and check me out as well. So otherwise, and of course, last but not least, a very big thank you to my incredibly attractive patrons. You'll see the names flow by in somewhere in the screen. Not sure where because I'm still working on that. But otherwise, I hope y'all have a very fantastic evening, and I will catch y'all on the flip side, all right? Peace.